In my previous lecture, I complicated J.L. Austin's How to Do Things with Words by introducing more contemporary linguistic themes, specifically memetics and meta-ironic behavior caused by compounding trend cycles as a means to redefine a performative act as one which more directly and intentionally alters pendulum shifts of interest among your given demographic and then outward. We could imagine that the most powerful utterances function in the same manner as widespread internet memes. I will continue to uphold these statements. However, through some distance and personal reflection, I am very critical of this lecture. My act was extremely awkward, perhaps too calculated, and felt nearly scripted. I am, and I assume my audience is as well, unsure of the authenticity of my own character, nor the reliability of my narration. I need to improve my gaslighting prowess, or hire an actor, though I typically find their nature perverse and unsettling. The lecture itself, according to my own definition, is attempting to be a meme, but unfortunately I am not funny, at least when I intend to be. Though I would accept any of my statements to be perceived as humorous, which is perhaps the essence or origin of meta-irony. Though, to be fair, I have no gauge of how my lecture was received, as there was only enough time to respond to a question that I asked myself. I cannot tell if my writing closely enough resembles the unintelligible pseudo-intellectual vernacular to serve my intended semiotic. In order for a theory piece to be passable, it must be self-referential, self-indulgent, senile, and serve the interests of the publisher's preconceptions. A more convincing emulation of this literary genre would certainly make my past lecture a better memetic symbol in itself, but it would result in the loss of information for every participant. Attendees would project their accumulated theories onto the points that best enable confirmation bias and pretend to understand the egocentric jerk circle that is academia. Alan Sokal, in my opinion, best or most accurately quoted Derrida in his piece Transgressing the Boundaries towards a Transformative Hermeneutics of Quantum Gravity. You don't need to hear the quote, however, because his notion was that quoting an accepted theory was enough to prove his argument's legitimacy, therefore demonstrating the extent at which logical fallacy can be published. Quoting Derrida should have been a hint to the publishers of the writings advanced irony, but no one, even publishers, actually reads theory. So how can I share the knowledge that I am beginning to see? The conscious memetic networks that construct the world, how one performative utterance informs everyone following, each as conscious or anti-conscious as the last, and is the happening of pre-existing contextual networks, generating outputs which morph into inputs, mimicking the complicated swirls of milk and coffee, the compounding and accelerating of a postmodernist culture, eventually ending in a cultural heat death. But were publishers ever competent? In Derrida's understanding of authorship, the criminal makes the law and the law makes the criminal. I would reinterpret this notion as a context which makes a memetic unit, which makes the context. I am unprofessional. I am not academically acclaimed or linguistically fluent enough to be referenced, so I will repeat myself over and over like a child telling a humorless joke, just waiting for a laugh so I can be freed from this echo chamber. I'm not sure if lying about specificities of this ritual's ingredients will hamper or catalyze the process of honoring a god so invested in oddity. But I'm using paper which I've sized with the natural PVA made of my childhood pet, and rather than gum arabic, I am using casein, which I've distilled from curdled milk. This process calls for a pigment as well, so I'm using raw umber from its motherland, Umbria. For the developing bath, I have sourced holy water consecrated at the Basilica of St. Mary of the Angels and the Martyrs in Rome. Magicians recommend that you set intentions before attempting a ritualistic act. Therefore, during the summoning, I am seeking to answer the following questions. How can I communicate what I see? How can I inform people of their own social programming, pattern recognition, generative performative utterance as an anti-conscious mimetic unit in a much larger conscious network, and the ability to be aware of these units, algorithms, and their accepted or unaccepted demographic impulses, which could create the greatest businessman, dictator, artist, or wizard? Where have I gone wrong? Do I lack charisma, social awareness? Why must it always fall in the hands of the unworthy? I ask Kek, the personification of primordial darkness, god of obscurity, of pendulums and mirrors, and who has inspired or feasted on the laughter of the alt-right's meta-ironic chaos magic, to shine his mighty presence onto me. Hear me, Kek. Come peaceably and visibly before me in the triangle of art. Come forth from the abyss from which my dagger conjures you. Hear my call and appear before me. I welcome you, Kek, to this, the meeting place of spirits. I, in my most humble opinion, feel that your followers have been disloyal and misguided. I have a favor to ask of you, if you will accept my offerings in reverence, and in doing so I ask that you will not harm me nor my loved ones. I offer you these hand-processed lecture slides, the content which they represent, a presence within an esteemed fine arts institution, and a part of myself. Through me and my mimetic formats, I can be a conduit of your teachings. I seek to follow your wisdom in effort to complete my eyes, to one day see the entirety of the social matrix, from a single neural connection to the global economy, and the cognitive strength to make the pendulum of interest swing at my will for the betterment of those around me. If you do accept my offer, I will expect to see the beginnings of the enlightenment you shall bear before the spring of 2024, when I am projected to graduate from the mentioned institution. I bind you now to our contract by the hexagram of Solomon and the authority of the Most High. Now I give you, Kek, license to depart this place. Go back to where you came from. Go peaceably and do not harm me nor my loved ones.